it's Solange. Welcome back to my channel. I'm truly grateful to be able to share this new tutorial with you guys. Thank you so much for over 400 subscribers. Thank you for always liking my videos, sharing them, commenting on them, sharing them with your family and friends. Whatever you do to help grow my channel, I am truly grateful. I truly appreciate it. If this is the first time you've visited my channel, don't forget to subscribe because it's only going to be great things from here on out. Now let's get right into this tutorial as we always do. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a straight line at the top of my pattern paper using my ruler. We're going to use this line to begin our pattern drafting aspect. This line will serve as our natural waist measurement line. Now on this line, I'm going to put our natural waist measurement divided by 4 and add 2 inches. The next thing we're going to do from that line is measure down and square across 8 inches. This would then create the line we need for our hip measurements. Now on this line, I'm going to put a hip measurement divided by 4 and add 1 inch. Now go ahead and connect the waistline mark to the hip line mark. From there, we're going to measure down 1 inch and draw a line straight across. This is for seam allowance in when we're ready to attach our ruffled portion of the skirt. And we're just going to go ahead and mark our hip measurement the same as we did on the previous line and connect them with a straight line. What I did there was just put CF for center front, so I remember, okay, this is my center front of my skirt. Next thing I'm going to do is measure down 1/2 inch at the front part of the skirt and connect it with the waistline measurement using a slant like I'm doing here. Now we can just go ahead and cut out the pattern. There's no need to add any extra seam allowances because we've already did that when we did we've already done that. Oh Lord, we have already done that when we did the calculations before. Gosh, just go ahead and cut that out, and you're going to cut out the top part that has the slanted line like this. So I'm sorry that this is off camera, but I basically folded my waistline of my pattern in 2 and I placed a knot so I can find the very center of that. The next thing I'm going to do is place the markings for our dart. In order to do that, I'm measuring down 5 inches from the area that we placed the notch, which is basically the center of the skirt, and measure down 5 inches, place a mark there, and we're just going to use our ruler to connect a straight line from the center of our notch to the marked area. From there, I'm going to take my tape measure and place 1/2 inch on each side of the line and use our ruler to draw a triangle shape, connecting the 1/2 inch marks to the center point of our length for our dart like that. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut out the shape for our dots. This is optional, however, because we're already doing it on a pattern paper, it makes it easier for when we're about to transfer it onto the actual fabric itself. Now, this is not our actual skirt fabric. This is just a piece of scrap polyester cotton fabric that I'm using. Polyester cotton because it's a similar material to the skirt material that we're going to use, which is 100% cotton fabric. And I'm going to place this and basically insert the dart into this fabric. Reason being, we don't want any visible dot lines on our skirt. We want it to look just flat, smooth, without the dot lines. So doing this on the fabric, on a piece of scrap fabric, will ensure that the dot is already removed and the shape of the skirt is already there for when we're actually cutting out of our actual skirt fabric. Once you continue watching it, you will know exactly what I mean. Now I'm just going to use some chalk and trace out the area where our dot was. Once you've pinned that into place, you just go ahead and cut out the pattern from the fabric. But you're not cutting out the dot area. You're only tracing the dot area so that when you fold it, you will know where to sew in your dot for your skirt. I'm just going to transfer some markings so I remember exactly how a skirt is supposed to be. So CF for the center front and then SF for the side front. Now I'm going to take the dot that we marked out from our pattern and fold it like so and place some pins coming along the edge so that we will know exactly where we're sewing. This is just for demonstration purposes. However, you can just go ahead and take it to the sewing machine using a regular 2 or 2.5 stitch length, straight stitch, and just sew coming down. This is what it looks like once it's already sewn. Our dot is in and you can see there's some shape added to our skirt pattern. Now this is the fabric we're going to use for our skirt. Is 100% cotton fabric, and yeah, it's folded in two currently, and the folded edge is where my hands are. So I'm just going to go ahead and straighten the fabric using our ruler. Now my client requested a wide waistband, approximately 3 inches wide. So that's why I'm measuring 3 inches. 3 and 3 is 6 inches since the waistband would be folded, and then an extra inch so that the allowance would be there when we actually sew the waistband onto the rest of the skirt. In the end, it will become 3 again. So if you want a 3-inch waistband, go ahead from the line that we marked to straighten our fabric and mark down 7 inches long. And we're just going to go ahead and square that across. Once that's complete, you're going to place the center front of your skirt pattern that already has your dart inserted, of course, and place it at the fold of the fabric like so. Once that is done, all you have to do is pin it into place and cut out your pattern. At this point, you can go ahead and cut out your waistband as well so that you don't forget that. And this is our front pattern for our skirt. Now you can go ahead and use the same pattern as we did before to cut out the back part, or you can just go ahead and fold the front pattern in two. Ensure that the selvage edges are lined up together, and place the folded front pattern of the skirt approximately 1.5 inches away from the selvage edge. This will be used for our zipper allowance for our skirt. Go ahead and cut out the pattern like you see me doing here. Note for the very top of the skirt, you don't have to cut it exactly as the front is, but you can start at the end and then slightly come up a bit more when you get to the back. So with the remaining fabric, you're gonna have it folded in two and go ahead and straighten the edge of the fabric. And I know it might be a bit tedious to straighten the edges all the time. However, when you're cutting certain patterns, especially of the skirt already had the dart inserted, having the fabric straight will just make life easier and it will make it look a lot better. You don't want the skirt to look like one side is a lot longer than one. Now what I'm doing here is measuring down the remaining length of my skirt. When I say remaining length, I mean when you measured your skirt length, you measured it from the natural waist down to basically the maxi skirt, your ankle. So whatever length your skirt was, you're just going to minus the 8, which we had measured down for a hip measurement, and minus it from the full length. So if your length of your skirt ended up to be 40, you just minus the 8 from it. And whatever is remaining, you go ahead and measure down that and square it across. And now you can go ahead and just cut it out. Because we're doing this ruffle gathered kind of skirt, we need two pieces. One piece would not give us enough gathers. So we're going to just place that exact fabric that we just cut out for skirt length on top another folded piece and just cut straight across. This will save time of you having to measure down that skirt across. Just place the exact pattern that you already cut out and just cut it right across. But if you're going to do this, please ensure your fabric is flat and straight. Now that we have two pieces of the same fabric, we're going to go ahead and take one of them and cut it right down the middle. So we're going to end up with 3 pieces. We're cutting this down in the middle so that it can line up with the back part of a skirt pattern. So the skirt pattern had the front piece, which was as one whole thing, and then the back had 2 pieces. So we have to make sure that it matches as well when we're doing our gathers. And guys, this is basically it for all the pieces we need for a skirt. We have our waistband, we have our front and back skirt patterns, and then we have our 2 long squares for our gathers, ruffles. So moving along, for our skirt pieces, we're just going to go ahead and serge the edges or zigzag stitch if you don't have a serger, all of the very edges of the skirt. Once that is done, we're going to place them right sides together and sew along the sides using an inch seam allowance. So I've already serged both sides and stitched them using my inseam allowance, and I've also pressed them open with my iron. So important to do that for neatness. The next thing I'm going to do is serge the top of my skirt, and I'm just going to grab the waistband that we had cut out earlier. I'm going to fold it wrong sides together and give it a press, and I'm also going to serge along the edges of it. Once that is done, this is what we have. I'm now going to place my waistband along the right side of the top of my skirt and pin it into place. Now the waistband that was cut is much longer than the actual waist measurement, but we had done that we can always cut off the excess after. So you have a choice of measuring the exact waist measurement that you need first, or you can just do as I did, cut a long strip, and then you can always cut off the excess after. Please note that I'm pinning this into place using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once that is done, you can go ahead and trim off the excess from your waistband and take it to your sewing machine using a regular 2 or 2.5 stitch length straight stitch and go ahead and sew it across. So I've already sewn it across, and as per usual, I would go ahead and press those seams open so that you can have a nice flat seam there, showcasing at the front as well as the back. And as you can see, the top of a skirt is basically coming together. So this is from the waist down to where our hip measurement is. And this is my first time making a skirt as this, and I'm super happy with how it's coming out thus far. What we're going to do at this point is go ahead and work on the bottom part of our skirt that is going to be gathered to the top part. And for this, remember we ended up with 3 pieces total. First it was 2, and then we cut one down the middle in half to create 3 pieces. So what I have here is the entirety of the front portion, which is one of the pieces that were left as one whole. So now I'm going to take 1/2 of one of the back pieces and pin it along the side seams, right side together, so that we can go ahead and stitch it straight down. So we're basically joining 3 pieces together and leaving a middle seam at the center, the same as we did for the skirt. Now please mind you, if the side of any of your fabric is just raw and fraying, you need to go ahead and serge those prior and then pin it into place using the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So just to show you what I did there, because I know the fabric is a bit, big. So I basically have the 1/2 and I sew that together with the front piece. I'm just pulling it up to show you what's occurred. That's the middle line I just passed there to the front of the skirt. And then we have the other side piece where the other 1/2 of fabric was sewn onto. And if you notice some threads, that's where I try to serge the raw edges before sewing it. And then I went ahead of my iron and pressed the seams open. Now the next thing I'm going to do is fold in the top part of the skirt, fold it in a 1/2 inch twice, and go ahead and hem it across using a straight stitch all the way down to the other end. Now guys, I apologize for this. At some point my camera stopped recording, but I figured it should be enough to continue this tutorial. Hopefully you guys will be able to understand from here on. So after I hemmed the top of where the ruffles are supposed to be attached twice, I went ahead and pressed that, and then I did a gathered stitch on my sewing machine. Now if you need a simple gathered tutorial, I'll be happy to do that in a separate video for you. You can just let me know. You can hand gather using a running stitch, or you can do it directly on your machine using a straight stitch by just adjusting a few tensions. So I'm going to do a centered zipper for my skirt. The zip, you have to ensure it's not too long, because you need it close to the end, but you don't want it so long that it's going to interfere with the ruffles. I also have a video on how to insert a centered zipper. I will link that tutorial in the description below. So I have inserted my centered zipper and this is what it looks like. And now what I'm doing is just measuring the circumference of the bottom portion of my skirt. So I can't remember exactly how much I got when I measured that. However, it will be approximately 1 inch bigger than my client's hip measurement because you don't want it too tight there, you just want a little bit of a space. So you can go ahead and measure that and then remember to times it by 2 if you measured it flat as I did, because you have to accommodate for the back as well. And I'm going to take all that I've gathered and just try to match it with the circumference of the skirt that we already sewn at the top there. So you go ahead and pull your stitches and gather it to fit the circumference of the hip portion of our skirt. And guys, this can be a bit tedious, but trust and believe, you just take your time and you pull those gathers in. In no time, you'll be finished with this part of the video. Once you figure you've done that, you just go ahead and try to match it up with your skirt. But you have to remember to leave your allowance at the back because you're going to have to stitch this down before attaching it to the top of the skirt. You can't put it at the exact measurement. You have to leave at least 1 inch or 1/2 inch or something so that by the time you sew that down, it will end up back to be the exact measurement as the circumference of the top of your skirt. Hope that is easy to understand. Guys, I'm just showing you from a different angle here. So I've matched up the gathers to fit the end of the skirt, and as you see me doing here, I'm making sure there's piece at the end, the left back, so by the time I'm finished sewing that down to the end, the circumference of the gathers will be the same as the circumference of the fitted portion of the skirt. So I've already stitched that down, and you would see right here, this is where I stitched down together. And then the next thing I'm going to do is here, you press that open, or you can do it after, right? And all we're trying to achieve here is to ensure that all seams are lined up. But we also need even gathers. So what I'm doing here is just, evening out the gathers. You notice some parts doesn't have as much gathers as some do. So all you have to do is carry around your gathers and try your best to space them out as much as possible so that the entirety of the skirt looks more evenly gathered, You don't want to have some parts really bunching and some other parts really spacey. So I did that off camera and this is what we're left with. It looks well enough and evenly gathered enough for me. What I'm doing now, because we're going to use a top stitch for this so that the ruffles are exposed. Now you understand why we had to hem the top of the skirt first, because then you'll be left with raw edges up there and we don't want that. Or you might have to fight to sew those after, and that can be a bit tedious. So all we're doing basically is lining up the seams. So the side seams for the ruffled part, you line on top of the side seam for the skirt, ensuring that you're only pinning through one layer going around. If you look very closely, you will see like there's a thin white line there. I marked about 1/2 inch on my skirt. This line is going to help me guide me when I'm attaching these ruffles to ensure that they're sewn as straight as possible going across and evenly around the skirt. as mentioned before, all I'm doing here is just attaching the same guided line we used for ruffles, attaching it to the white line that we created on the fitted part of the skirt, pinning them into place so that when we do a top stitch, we can have them done evenly and neatly as possible. So I've matched up all my seams mostly thus far. And then all you have to do is take it to your sewing machine and sew it going all the way around, ensuring you're sewing through one layer. And guys, this is it. I've already sewn my skirt going all the way around, and this is what it looks like. And on the inside as well. And of course, I have to try and show you from a different angle. But what's left to do as well is for us to hem the bottom of our skirt. So what you can do is go ahead and measure the length that your client wanted or the length that you wanted for your skirt, and then you can decide if you need to cut off any or so forth. But mine was perfectly fine. I just went ahead and hem about an inch or two at the bottom. It's so cute, right? And when you're hemming it, make sure that you open all of your seams and hem it so that when it's time to iron, all the seams can be pressed down nice and flat. So as I was saying before, you could go ahead and measure the length of your skirt so you can decide how long or how thick your hem needs to be to match up with the final length for your skirt. And this is what it looks like for the final product, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and hopefully you would try it. And thank you so much again for subscribing, and yeah, I'll be uploading new tutorials soon. Bye bye.